these little Korean pianos were never intended for this kind of abuse. I'm convinced Samick is made in South Korea. And it's amazing that these pianists can get sound out of what I call a PSO, a piano-shaped object. I was talking to Frederick Hodges last night and complaining about upright pianos, and he said, "Now you understand what my life is all about." I've been spoiled being a classical pianist, playing on Steinways and Baldwins and, well, grand pianos. So I'm going to try to make it sound as grand as I can. So I've had a request to play Rialto Ripples again. So I thought I'd make a little Gershwin sonata out of a few short Gershwin tunes. First, Rialto Ripples, and then a little piece that I transcribed called Meadows Serenade, which is a tune left out of a Gershwin Broadway show. It's always the director's prerogative to start cutting once the show gets too long. And of course, the slow, soulful numbers are the ones that usually get cut. And this is it's a beautiful little tune that a fellow pianist friend of mine who was friends with Ira Gershwin photocopied his photocopy that Ira Gershwin gave to him. And I just sort of jazzed it up a little bit. It's called Meadows Serenade. And it's about katydids and crickets, and about a girl who's in love with a boy who can't ever remember her name. We've all been through that before. It's a nice little tune by Gershwin. And then I guess I'd like to play a little excerpt from Rhapsody in Blue. It's one that I transcribed from a 10-inch acetate record that Gershwin made in 1928, or 1926, I think. Of course, those records, you could only get about 4 minutes of music on one side. So Rhapsody in Blue takes about 14 to 16 minutes to play, depending on how fast your fingers are. And the recording companies weren't going to produce 4 or 5 records for people to sit there and change the record to hear the whole thing. So they asked George if he could just cook up an arrangement that would be less than 4 minutes. So he went into the recording studio and decided just to take the main theme that comes about 2/3 of the way through the piece, and just record that chunk. And they kept a clock in the recording studio so you would know how much time you had left. And you can actually hear the clock ticking down. When it gets to the end of the tune, it just does a little arpeggio, and that's it. Because if you ran over, they'd have to do the whole thing over again. It was direct-to-disc recording. So that, and then to close the little sonata of Gershwin, his own arrangement of I Got Rhythm. These are from the Gershwin Songbook, published in 1932. It was a collection of his favorite songs that his publisher convinced him to write down his jazzed up party arrangements. And he said, well, nobody's going to be able to play them. And he was right. They had only sold about 1,000 copies, I think. But it's a beautiful book. I had somebody give me one of the originals with Gershwin's autograph embossed on the outside. You have 2 pages of the original song in sort of the easy version that was published, and then 2 or 3 pages of Gershwin's jazzed up arrangements follow each original version. And it's just fascinating to compare to see what was published versus how he would play it.